Welcome everyone. Today we have a special treat. I don't really think Kimbal needs an introduction. And also too, it's a very, very, very busy week. So thank you so much, Kimbal. He's launching the Kitchen Cookbook. We're gonna get into this a little bit, but he's got a very busy week. We're gonna talk a lot about his initiatives with Big Green, Square Roots, talk about his background growing up. And so let's just jump into it. But is there anything you want to say a little bit about this week? I know you have a lot on your plate, so thank you for your time.
I will say I'm really, really happy to make time for you guys and appreciate all the support you've given us over the years at Tesla. We really do appreciate it and love all the support you give us.
Yeah,
our pleasure.
It's my honor to give you guys some time. So I know, but it is a crazy week. I've never launched a cookbook before. I didn't realize it takes over your life.
Yeah, well, I think you guys have done a good job. I mean, this is the first time I've seen the cover, obviously, but just looking through it, I mean, it looks amazing.
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
The recipes are fantastic. The food is, I mean, we are so proud of our food here at the kitchen. And we're going to open a kitchen in Austin. So our Tesla community will get a chance to really enjoy it there.
Yeah, October, right?
October is the goal, yeah.
Yeah, because you have...
October 2024, the kitchen Austin.
Yeah, who knows? We might even show up. We talked.
There you go. You guys should come out. Absolutely. Have you seen the new factory yet?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, you already seen that, but there's always new stuff to see.
Exactly.
Come on out. Come and get
like
update.
The kitchen.
Right. Exactly.
But it's insane because you guys have 2 locations in Colorado, right?
Yep.
Denver and Boulder, and then also to Chicago, and then launching in Austin.
Launching in Austin in October.
Yeah.
You got to come to the Bay Area because your food will fit right in.
Our food is perfect for the Bay Area.
Yeah.
We'd love to come there someday.
Yeah. So we'll talk about some of the inspiration in terms of farm to table, and only a few restaurants really kind of started that, but you kind of take them to the next level.
Thank
so
you. Yeah,
we'll get into that.
there's wonderful restaurants. There are a lot of Bay Area restaurants that started the farm to table movement in the 70s.
Yes.
And the problem is that technology wasn't there, so with the advent of that creative invention called email, we were in the early 2000s. We were able to bring farmers on board, and they could just email us their orders, and we could email back to them. It was a life-changing moment. So we got my claim to fame is getting some farmers online. So instead of using phones and paper chits, we were just there wasn't even texting back then.
Yeah.
It was just because there was no iPhones, 2004.
Yep.
And
just AOL almost.
Yeah, I mean, and actually not that many people really were on it. Nowadays, of course, everyone is on it. It's just hard to imagine that there was a time when people weren't using things like email.
Yeah, now you have to outfit them with Starlink. So.
Yeah, exactly. Now they will need Starlink. That's the next step. Exactly.
Now there's no unreached area at this point.
I mean, they're farmers. They're in rural areas. They need Starlink.
Yeah, exactly. So Kimbal, can you just tell us a little bit about your upbringing in South Africa, and then ultimately, like, how did it lead you down your career path? Obviously, in the early days of like the '90s, of just like Zip2 to getting into food now, to obviously being on the board on Tesla and SpaceX. But just talk to us a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah, I mean, I loved cooking from a young age. I also loved technology from a young age. I kind of had both of those passions. But what I loved about food when I was young is cooking for my family. And you can imagine our family, with my mom and my sister and my brother, just super in our heads. Me too. I'm very much in our heads all the time, like working on something, And when I started cooking for the family, everyone would just sit down and eat for a little bit. And I really kept that all the way through to my life. I had breakfast with my daughter this morning, 11-year-old, and it would be a crazy thought that I would not make breakfast for her, and we would not sit down and have a 10-minute breakfast. So that's actually not common for people. So the message of this book is really to get people cooking for your community, whether it's your family or your friends, or and the recipes are great. They're delicious. They're the top 100 recipes that I chose from 20 years of doing farm to table shared plates. So these are all kind of designed to be shared. And our restaurant is kind of like an upscale. Well, if you think about Nobu for Japanese food, ours is which is all shared plates. Ours is kind of at that level, but with farm to table shared plates. So it might be carrots, or we actually do have some tiraditos in there, which has raw fish. But it's more of a style of eating where you share the food with your table, and it's just really great. And I'm so excited to get the cookbook out and have people trying these recipes.
How did those years form you guys, even in your close relationship that you guys have today through I think even Walter Isaacson's book, just being the voice of reason potentially to Elon and
I mean, I think Elon's actually quite reasonable. I think that when you're under so much pressure, and really there's an enormous amount of pressure.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm the voice of reason. It's more like I'm helping Elon find his voice of reason. Like just okay, let's slow down a little bit here. Like what do you think is the right thing to do?
Yeah.
And oftentimes, 99% of the time, Elon does know what the right thing to do is. It's just when you're under so much pressure, you can do some silly things. Like I'd really like him to tweet less silly things. Actually, no, take it back. More silly things, and less bad things. Whatever the bad thing. I don't want to go to that part. But he's really funny.
Yes.
Okay, let's bring more of that part in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that he's actually quite a reasonable person. It's just that when you're under so much pressure, it's very hard for anyone to just calm the nervous system and just think about, okay, what's the right thing to do here.
Yeah. I'm assuming you read the Walter Isaacson book.
It's so funny. I love Walter, and I spent hundreds of hours with Walter, and I started reading it, and I was like, man, I find it so intense to read it. He's so good.
Yeah.
He's such a good writer. So I've read many parts of it.
Okay.
But I have to dip my toe in because it is literally like I go through the.
It's deep.
He's so good at that. Like they're so good at telling I think he gets really to the heart of the story. And
He does. Yeah.
so it's not like I'm reading a version of the story. I feel like my story, my brother's story. I'm like, wow, like this guy's really gotten in there.
Yeah, must be a little weird because he's like in your life, like
It's hard. Yeah, it's really hard to read. I mean, I say that it's beautiful writing, but it's more like I'm going through this. I'm going through this experience again. I've already gone through it once.
Yeah. So I mean, in the book, you are portrayed pretty well, right? You are portrayed as the voice of reason, like talking Elon off the ledge a couple of times. But Walter also talks about the lack of the empathy gene in Elon. Well, so you actually have the opposite. You have.
I think I have too much empathy. Yeah, I think that's the wrong phrase. I think how do you really have too much empathy? I don't know, but I think we they say brothers are complements. We're very close in age, so it's like we grew up very close together. So I do think I created a beautiful empathy gene in my own, but sometimes it also goes too far at the at the end of the day, the voice of reason is not just what everyone else thinks. It actually is like what is the right thing to do, and then maybe how do you communicate that? That also can use some empathy, because sometimes the right thing to do is not what people want. And you have to learn what I can often do is help describe it to people so that they understand why they're doing it versus we're just going to do it. So that's another role that I played.
It's interesting.
Which uses my empathy gene, and because I don't disagree with the decision. It's more that how do we share this with even with the world.
And would you say too, like obviously your mother's had an amazing career. I mean, she's
great.
literally traveling all over the world. How was her even watching her struggles? Obviously being married to your father, and how did that also shape all of the things you're doing today, and how you navigate through life?
Yeah, I mean, she's a survivor, and I think when we left South Africa, we were running away. I mean, like, we were not like, oh, this is cool, we'll go back to South Africa if it doesn't work out. Like, no. There was no, we burnt the boats, like, we're not going back.
Yeah.
And I think that all put us on this kind of, we've been on an edge our whole life. I don't think I'll ever really get off that edge where you are, no matter how much, even when I say the word success, it doesn't really, I don't use that term. It's more like when I've achieved so much, you would think, oh, cool, that I should have less of that edge.
Yeah.
It's like wired into the nervous system.
Yeah.
I still love to work. I love to work very hard. Like the cookbook is great. That's a lot of work. I was like, how hard is this going to be? Turns out it's really hard to do something good. A good cookbook that took like thousands of hours. Like, wow, that is and I'm very proud of it. And the team was very helpful. Part of it, we have a great group of people doing it. But if we're going to do something, we're going to do it well. Just because I have some past achievement doesn't mean I'm just going to have some random cookbook. I'm really proud of this.
Yeah.
What is the hardest part about the cookbook? We talk about this being a big challenge, and you didn't really expect it to be such a big challenge. But for those who are not familiar with the publishing industry, what was the most challenging part about this book, the whole cookbook process?
Sure. Yeah. So when I first of all, I wanted the cookbook to be, why am I doing this? Right? Like, I always like to know why I'm doing it. So that I know it when I wake up in the morning and it's hard. I'm working on this. I want people to cook for their friends and their family. I want them to cook for their community. All right. So if we're gonna cook for their community, now we have to think about, okay, what are the recipes that we're going to choose from thousands and thousands of recipes in our database that we've used over 20 years. Which are the 100 recipes, because you can't really do more than 100, which are the 100 recipes that I think people will love cooking for their family, love cooking for their friends. And so that was hard. And then we also make up dishes all the time. We literally we riff on local ingredients, whatever we're getting. And so the other thing I wanted the feel of the cookbook to be like you're in the restaurant, not like here's some pretty photos of food, but like there's energy in the pictures, like you're having dinner, or you're these beautiful portrait shots of like here's one right there.
Yep.
Stunning photos of the restaurants themselves. This is a cookbook, of course. It's about the food, the recipes, but I wanted it to feel like you're in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Do you have a go-to recipe?
My go-to recipe in this one, which I actually literally did this morning, is my soft scrambled eggs. It's actually a technique. So the recipe is very simple, but it is very, very good. And it's a recipe that I learned from one of my French chefs, master chefs that I went to that taught me in cooking school. Well, very well known chef. He's now passed away. His name is Chef Elon Saltner. But he wanted to teach us, even though there are many levels of chefs. He's this main guy. Many levels of chefs between our teacher and him. When it came to scrambled eggs or the omelet, that's the one thing he must teach. He will not let anyone else teach. So I learned the fundamental recipe from him, but his approach took 10 minutes, which is great if you have 10 minutes. But every morning, no. Like, especially when you have kids.
Yeah.
No. Exactly. So I have a version of it that I think is as good, and it's 90 seconds. And it's actually, my daughter loves toast, so we put the toast in the toaster, and I cook the eggs before the toast pops out of the toaster.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like it's that fast.
Oh, interesting.
But it is a technique, so that's why there's a QR code where you can watch me do it.
Oh.
Rather than because I can tell you how to do something 1,000 times. It's really a technique that you have to watch, because the technique is what you'll even need to do it a few times to get it right. But of course, scrambled eggs are always good. Like you can have a relatively bad version of them and it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you get this technique right, it's like wow, it's fantastic. So that would be my go-to recipe there.
Nice.
What would you say, I think it's really interesting how your passion is like obviously food, community.
Community, yeah.
But going through so much like what your family has, like, sometimes I think people just become, they more self-focused or just like self-loathing almost in some ways. What would you say has like brought you out to be like, because I think even, I've read just that, food has kind of always been there to just like bring you in hard circumstances and the families together. Like what through all of that has just like brought you out to be like, let me serve the community. Let me, like what is it about food that just brings that out in you?
I just kind of learned, I'd like to answer your question, but I think the reason I'm there is because I just did it from the beginning. And when I started doing it, the food I cooked was good. And it turns out I'm good at this, but I didn't really know that I would be good at it. And then everyone would sit down and eat. And so it's kind of just flowed. And so I'd even cook in college for my friends, and it was just like a thing, right? And so I think for me it was very much, I'm just in flow with food and with community. But I will say the big learning I had, which was a bit of an aha moment, was this concept of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So there's a famous book called The Happiness Curve. Yeah. Which talks about you kind of become, in America, you become happier you actually start at age 18 getting unhappier until you're 53, and then you get happier, and it's a curve like that. So you're like, oh, okay, and then you're happier than you were when you were 18 when you're 74. That's on average. It's some quantitative approach, and I think there's truth to it. And one of the theories of it is that it's the death of ambition that makes you happier. And I think he's wrong, actually. I think it's actually you change from a fixed mindset where it's all about the outcome. It's all about, I've got a fixed set of brains, I've got a fixed set of talent, and I need this outcome to happen. Like this, for example, a restaurant to be successful. And I do remember having that. I was like, I just need my restaurant to be successful. And then actually, then once it's open, there's a lot of work to do. And even if it is successful, you don't get to go do something else 6 months later. Like it's a lot of work 6 months later. That's a lot of work 2 years later. It's a lot of work 20 years later.
Yeah.
So
congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
Years.
To hit 20 years, that's
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah.
In the restaurant world, that is a big deal. So
Yeah.
I feel very proud of that. It was actually a major reason I wanted to do the cookbook, was to celebrate the fact that we're still kicking and still going. In fact, this restaurant in Boulder is busier than it's ever been. So proud of the team here at the kitchen. They're really kicking butt. So the growth mindset is not about just brains and talent and let's go open the restaurant. It is a journey of learning where you're open to failure. It's going to happen on a regular basis. You're open to success. It's going to happen on a regular basis. And you're going to learn from the failures, and you're going to celebrate the successes and accept that you're on the journey. And that is a big change in my nervous system, to accept that I'm on the journey. And that means that when I'm bringing people together for community, I come at it from a place of joy and service, not from a place of, I used to use this term, literally, I'm a pretty happy guy, right? I used to call myself the guy with grim determination. I know that other people who knew me, they always saw me as the happy-go-lucky guy. No, inside I was grim determination. And I was like, wait a minute, I got to stop that. That was many years ago, maybe even, actually probably happened after I broke my neck. But a couple of years later, I was like, I just need to change how I am. And I changed to this concept of joyful engagement. Like, yeah, this is going to be hard, but let's engage with joy rather than grim determination. And I use those words because those were actually the words I was using. And I think that a lot of people out there, they may not use those words, but they are approaching life with grim determination. And you can actually do exactly the same thing and just change the attitude to joyful engagement. And you can get the same results, and you're just a happier person.
It's amazing. Did that come to you when you broke your neck, when you had like that God moment, or when did that change happen?
I did have an incredible experience with it was a psychological awakening when I broke my neck, but no, I think it must have been a couple of years later, because I don't recall it at that moment. I read a book called The Power of Now, which is by Eckhart Tolle, and a lot of that book resonated with me, which was about appreciating the moments, about not taking yourself too seriously. I think a lot of those words were also in that book that I really resonated with. So I think that kind of happened maybe in my 40s, maybe early 40s. And it wasn't like I made a switch overnight. It was a retraining of my nervous system. It took years.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, that's crazy. One question I had, because obviously we're the Tesla owners of Silicon.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, obviously we're the Tesla owners of Silicon Valley. But one question I would have is, can you tell us a little bit about even the story of, Elon calling you and just be like, hey, I need help. But just, talk about seeing where we are today, but like could you just tell us about like what it's been like to watch the journey to get to like where we are?
Well,
today?
you know what is amazing?
From the crazy days to like being.
Yeah, I was actually just literally with Elon 2 days. What day? Today's Thursday. I was with him on Sunday, and we spent the day together, and we were just reflecting that it's 20 years. I mean, I was talking about my cookbook, right? I was like, it's 20 years of the kitchen, and then we looked back on the dates. Wow, it's actually 20 years of Tesla.
Yeah.
20 years is a long time.
Yeah.
We're like, wow. And I remember Elon was involved before this, but I got involved in April of 2004. So like a month from now, like a month later, a month after I opened my restaurant, I got involved in Tesla. I still have the original business plan that Elon sent me, and it's I remember it quite clearly because I'm like, okay, so this is a plan to take an electric motor, put it in a high-end car rather than kind of a low-end car, and enter the market at the premium end, but of course with a mission to bring the world to alternative energy using mass production, of course. But you got to start where the technology is correctly applicable. And I was like, this is a good idea. This is a good idea, and I'm not a physicist, but I know the basics. You know, I know when things are clearly pushing the edges of physics, and this really wasn't. This was well within the realm of physics to go do this. And I thought, well, and I had some ideas about which car would be a good example to use, and the Lotus Elise was those days. And I remember those early days of 20 years ago coming into it with healthy skepticism, but this could work, so why not? I'm maybe even in those days I had a little bit more of a joyful engagement approach, because I was like, man, if this does work, it would be cool. Like, that's cool. Let's give it a try. So came in, we got to this point where we took apart a Lotus Elise and we put it took the engine out, we put an electric motor into it, and we all got to take a drive in it, and there's no dashboard. I mean, this thing is like literally like ready to fall to pieces because we don't fully know what we're doing. But we put the electric motor in, and we had a steering wheel, and you had gas pedals and a seat, but you know, all the other stuff you're used to in a car is all gone. No dashboard. I don't even know if we had a windscreen. It was just that level of a go-kart with a electric motor. And I put my foot on that pedal, and I will never forget that experience. I've been in fast cars. I've been in like whatever, a gasoline, the most coolest cars you can imagine. I have never experienced like what all this acceleration you guys will know. Yeah. It's a thing we had never ever experienced before. Yeah, exactly. I was like, wow, okay, now I'm really in. Like, this is great. And then of course the journey kicked off, and we had to go sell 2,500 Roadsters. I'm very proud to say that there was a town in America that had a very large spike in sales relative to the population. It was Boulder, Colorado. Really? I think I sold more cars in Boulder, Colorado than even in like the Bay Area. It was wow. It was wow. I set up a little store down the road. Uh-huh. We set it up in a couple of months, and I'm sure the Bay Area is more than us, but for Boulder, it was like, here's Boulder.
Did you get a referral bonus?
No, it's just my job. No, it was great. It was, and in fact, one of my highlights was Kevin Costner coming into the store.
In Boulder?
In Boulder. One of his kids was at the school, and I got to sell him a Roadster.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
It's so cool.
That is.
Yeah, you spend an hour. You know, someone wants to buy a car. You spend an hour with him.
Yeah.
It was cool.
That's
he was such a nice guy.
Yeah, for all the Yellowstone fans out there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He's great.
What do you drive today?
So I have them all. I have the Cybertruck as well.
Okay.
I still love the Model S.
Yeah.
Love it. And honestly, the new Model 3, I would say is, if anyone has tried the new Model 3,
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Not only that, our price now is so affordable. So $3,000 down, $300 a month in for the lease. It's amazing. Like, wow, we still continue to. I mean, we've been around the block, right? Like, okay, how many times are you going to get amazed? Wow, all right, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So really, if anyone hasn't tried the Model 3,
okay,
that you want to do that, the new one.
So I wanted to get your thoughts on the Cybertruck. It's it's obviously a controversial car. John just took delivery of his.
Oh yeah, what do you think?
I love it.
Amazing.
It's more than I thought. I mean, we've been waiting for 4 years.
Yeah.
And so just to actually get it, to the windshield to the four-wheel steering,
The
to
steering.
the steer-by-wire is just...
So I've done mine. I've taken my Cybertruck on a racetrack where they put the cones in the middle and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there is no way I could drive this large car, and the four-wheel steering. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, it's I would say it's really going to redefine the way cars are going to be made.
It's so
just
cool.
because I mean, I have a 2018 Model X before that, and it makes that feel ancient.
Wow.
You know, and so like it's just...
And actually, in Tesla years, that is ancient.
Yeah, exactly. And it's only like 5 years,
Right, exactly.
right? You know, so it's
You know what is amazing to me is other car companies change their models every 7 years. It's like I can't even remember 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like where were we 7 years ago? Like what year was that?
So when we interviewed your mom a year ago, she was the first to admit like she is not a good cook, right?
Totally. She'll actually, one of my best opportunities I ever got, I was in New York for 9/11.
Yeah.
It sounds not a good thing, but actually my mom, because she's such a well-known dietitian, got a call to cook for the firefighters, which is quite an honor. You imagine millions of people volunteering. And I had just graduated from cooking school, and I had a security pass because I lived downtown, right where the World Trade Centers were, and was woken up to the sounds of the planes hitting the building and got out of there. But the opportunity I got, because my mom was such a well-known dietitian, was that they were looking for people like her to come and cook that were experts in their field. And she said, "Well, I don't cook well, but my son does."
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I was like, "Wow, I get to go."
she
Literally,
Well, told you, huh?
yeah, right. I mean, well, I was excited about it because the opportunity to go work down there was amazing. You know, because everyone's processing this incredible trauma of this attack that killed so many people.
Yeah.
And not just killed people we didn't know, people we actually knew, like people that worked in those offices. And I had a meeting that, a few days later. It wasn't that morning, but I had a meeting scheduled a few days later in the restaurant at the top of the towers. And I was like, wow, I mean, I could have been in there. You know, it's just it was just devastating. So the opportunity to cook for the firefighters was wonderful.
Wow.
It just was something to do, you know, something where you could feel like you could help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that the moment where you realized that you wanted to get into the restaurant business? Was that kind of like?
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience cooking for the firefighters. Like we'd cook the most wonderful food you can imagine, and I mean, we're talking about the best chefs in the world. I mean, I was not one of those people. I was a lowly potato peeler. You know, I worked my way up, got to pasta station, and got to saute steak. But at the end of the day, yes, chef. And but I did work my way up, and I got to be the guy also driving the ATV down to this gymnasium that was converted to a cafeteria, and you just stare at these giant piles of melting metal, like piles, but like the big as a building. And obviously there were buildings, but like it was inconceivable that these things were there, and the lighting was so bright. You know, they had these rescue lights because they're searching all 24/7. I'm still. It's like I still struggle with that memory, but I would get in, and these firefighters would come into this gymnasium that had been converted, and would take off their shells, and they were covered in this white dust. It's horrible. I'll never forget the smell. But it's white dust that I'm sure is really bad
From
for
all
you.
the ash, right?
It was a dust. You know, it's hard to describe, but it almost felt like sheet. You know, when you have sheetrock that has that like pastiness.
Yeah.
Imagine if all of that just like became dust.
Pulverized,
It was I think it was that, but it was hard to tell. Anyway, so they took it all off, and they just had this gray look in them, and we'd feed them this food that was truly great. You know, one time we had salmon like poached carefully with dill sauce, done by a recipe by a well-known chef, and I was like serving them these beautiful dishes that you get in a Michelin star restaurant. That because we all had nothing else to do, and these guys were like the chefs were the best in the world. So they're not gonna like serve up crappy. Even the presentation was done well.
Yeah.
It was great, and so they would eat the food, and then they would come to life. You know, you could see them come to life, and they had about a 45-minute break, and by the time that 45-minute break was over, they were talking with each other. They had energy. And so it was that kind of the life, the community through food that I just had to do a restaurant. I just had to. And I was like, there's no choice in this matter. I'm just going to go do it. And it was really, what's the right word? It was really, not humbling, but like I had to accept the possibility of failure in something that I really love. It was one thing to go do a business where you know, let's say, so use the first company we did. We were building maps in door-to-door directions for the internet and yellow pages. Okay, you fail at that. Well, let's go work on another idea. You know, and all of these companies struggle, and so there's always times of failure. But I actually loved cooking. Like, that was my love.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little bit dangerous for me to turn what I love into work.
Yeah.
And then what if it fails?
Yeah.
I would be pretty devastated.
Yeah.
Again, I can't remember the word, but it was a bit vulnerable. Let's say it was a vulnerable decision for me to do that.
Yeah.
And when I came to Boulder, we looked around the country for different spots, but I wanted a place. First of all, Boulder's wonderful. Great, to see it, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And there's also a great restaurant town. There are wonderful restaurants in Boulder. So I wanted to be a place where we had lots of great restaurants. I feel like in the restaurant world, you want to be around other really great restaurants. And Boulder is one of those communities. And so we found a space. I met my co-founder was Hugo Matheson. Jen Lewin was my wife at the time, and Hugo and I, we started the restaurant together. Hugo was the one who came to us with this farm to table, this idea, and because he had worked at the River Cafe, which in London was one of the original OGs of farm to table, also from the 70s.
Didn't you work under him as a line?
I did, yeah. I worked. I was so curious about his style of food.
Yeah.
So the style of food I learned in New York was French,
Traditional
really
French.
hardcore French. You know, very much you do it this way and there's no other way.
Yeah.
And his style was, hey, let's get some beautiful ingredients from the farmer's market. Let's do as little as possible to it.
Okay.
And you're just like, it feels like he's just magic. That it's, wow, this is the best tasting thing I've ever had. So I learned that through him, and I was like, I just want to cook. I want to learn to do. So I cooked for him for a year as a line cook, and during that time, we were brainstorming about doing a new restaurant together, and we decided to do it together, and so he brought the ethos of working with the local farms, and what I brought was helping them actually get online. You know, I went to a store to Best Buy with one of the farmers to actually go buy them a computer. I didn't buy it with my money, but I was like, I felt like I was going around with my grandparents, you know, just let me go show you how to get online. And they're like, look, if you want to show me how to do it, I will let you set it up for me. But I'm not ready. I'm not that person. I'm not going to go. I need someone like a grandchild who's going to set this up for me. And it was sweet. It was very sweet, and I was happy to do it. But through that process of getting the farmers online, and Hugo's ethos of really figuring out how to work with them, what they were growing, how to make it in season, but also, in the world of industrial food, everything is a seasonal time.
Yes.
Right, and actually that's not how farming works. So you also want to tell the farmer, we want to serve food that is good. So if you grow it and it's good, just bring it to us. We will put it on the menu. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That first year we opened the kitchen, we would say to them, if the food arrives by 4 p.m., we will put it on the menu by 5:30.
Oh
wow.
It was like that level of turnaround. We created new menus every day. It was a creative. We originally started this restaurant purely as a love. We wanted to do 40 covers a night, 40 people a night.
Yeah.
Farm to table, shared plates, just come enjoy.
Yep.
It was so popular. This idea of we work with local farms it just hit a nerve.
Yeah.
And so people came in droves, and we said, well, it seems like we're quite busy, so let's add, Sunday and Monday nights. We did that.
Yeah.
And then we were like, well, let's add lunch. And we did that. And then eventually we got this crazy idea to add breakfast. We since pulled back.
Because what time were the farmers showing up at?
Exactly. We were
Like
just, it was
4
just silly. We were just so popular that we're like, well, let's try breakfast. But Oh, that we were just starting to burn out. So we pulled back. We do lunch and dinner now, and there was a point where we were doing 3,000 people a week through this restaurant.
Wow.
In just a few, maybe 6 months after we opened. It was that popular.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the movement really got its. The restaurants like ours, and there were maybe a few others in the country at that time, were doing it as well, and also had such a positive response from consumers that it did help kick off the movement. But again, farm to table wasn't a term when we opened. It was coined a few years later after this sort of movement started.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What would you say? I mean, you've had, you started Zip2. You've been part of some amazing companies. How have those successes and failures kind of translated into starting the kitchen and your other initiatives, even like Big Green and Square Roots?
Yeah,
and
sure.
all that?
I've had a lot of success in my life, and I'll be honest, success doesn't bring me happiness. Sometimes I get quite depressed. When I sold my first company, I think part of the reason I went to cooking school was I was a little depressed. I was like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
I was helping out some other startups and my brother as well, but I was like, this wasn't moving me. And so I love to kind of get in it. So I did the cooking school, and then of course that led me to opening the kitchen. But what I've learned since then is really to treat life like a learning journey. So when things are tough, what do I learn from this? When things are great, what will I learn from this? And life comes in cycles, and to realize that there's good times and then there are bad times, but actually you're on the ride.
Yeah.
Like don't stress out too much about the bad times, and don't think the good times will last forever. It's more like I think it's a gentle upward slope if you have the right attitude in life. Like you're building wisdom as you get older.
Yeah.
So you're getting, even if you don't know it, you're getting a little bit better at life.
Yeah.
But if you take each of the cycles too seriously, which I used to do, whether you like things are going great and it's going to be like this forever, or sold my company, I got nothing to do, I'm super depressed, it's going to be like this forever. Actually, it's not.
Yeah.
You talked about the decimalization of your life, like about your life in decades, and you just celebrated your 51st.
I'm 51, yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about like your first half of your life and then your second half. What do you think about in terms of learnings from your first half and how you apply that to your second half of your life?
Well, I think that one of the big learnings I have is that most people say life is short.
Yeah.
And I used to have that. And then I had a very serious accident when I was 37, so that was about 15 years ago. Broke my neck, paralyzed for 3 days, and wow, was that a wake-up call? And it was like, wake-up was the wrong word, it was like a psychological awakening. It was like beautiful and, okay, stop everything you're doing and have a different approach to life.
Yeah.
That's when I really started Big Green and worked on the nonprofit side of things and really wanted to do, be in service, which I continue to do, and I love that part of my life. What I learned is that actually life is long, and I learned it, but because every day after my accident, for a couple of years, I thought I was going to die. Like someone would. Wow. Because I was really recovering. I was in rehab and really recovering, and if anyone, like a bike would come by, even from a distance, I was like, that bike's going to hit me, and I'm going to die. Because if they did hit me, I would actually die, because the healing process takes a long time. And I didn't. And it just every day just kept going. And then I realized that, wow, that was a long day, and wow, that was a long week. And okay, so maybe life isn't short after all. It's actually quite long.
Huh.
And so that's why I kind of treat me being at 50 as it's like that's my halftime.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think that I probably have solid 25 years of being right upstairs, and the warranty hasn't fully run out. That's a long time. I was 26 or 25 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, a lot of things happened at that time.
Yeah.
So I think my biggest learning is that life is long.
It's interesting. Yeah. Most people don't think of it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like you faced, obviously, I think that it happened in Wyoming or something, right? As well.
And I broke my neck.
Yeah. So it seems like you've encountered some brutal physical experiences, and then even Elon, when he was young, he experienced being bullied and some severe things, and then obviously the pain that's come with running like Tesla and SpaceX. What if those
They're so easy. What are you talking about?
Exactly, no big deal. Yeah, I just
no, they run themselves.
Crashing hell is a cakewalk.
Exactly. But how did, like, even stepping a little bit further back, like, you know, talking the Zip 2 days, like when you guys are like running the website during the day and at night you guys are coding, like how did that create your guys' bond? Because it seems like you guys have faced some insane and crazy, you know, challenges and difficulties and things that you've had to overcome. And so
Yeah, I know. We really have gone through some crazy times, man. I'll tell you that.
yeah.
I think that the experience of Zip 2 was actually quite a beautiful one. You know, I wouldn't call it. It got really difficult later on when we were like trying to deal with a CEO that we were struggling with. That was sort of, we hadn't learned how to deal with that stuff yet. And you get really frustrated when someone was running the company the way you wouldn't run it. You know, and you don't know how to fix that. But but that year where we were sleeping in the office and eating at Jack in the Box, I certainly don't want to go back to that. But
We're gonna ask
maybe that actually really was my formative moment of, well, I'm never gonna do that again. So what do I need to do to never do that again?
So the answer is you wouldn't go back to Jack in the Box.
You know, there was literally an actual time where I was working so hard, maybe like 4 a.m, and I went over to Jack in the Box and I had a milkshake, and I'm really tired, and I don't know why. I don't even eat milkshakes, but I'm like, there's something in the milkshake, and I just see it, and I just throw it out. I don't want to think about it, and I put the lid back on, and I keep drinking my milkshake because I just don't want to think about it. Because I was just like, I'm already at rock bottom. It's all good.
We've always asked Elon his favorite Jack in the Box menu item. He defers to the teriyaki bowl.
Yeah, teriyaki bowl. Yeah. I would go chicken fajita pita.
Is that right? Really?
I haven't seen the menu in 20 years, but I'm sure 30 years. Yeah. I'm sure it's still there.
There's an over and under on what your favorite Jack in the Box food item is. I don't think that was one of them, but
it's great.
Yeah.
One question I had, so you had, it's crazy how, you know, with when you think of Tesla, SpaceX, and then all the work you're doing for food sustainability, like, I mean, sustainable transportation, becoming multi-planetary, how are you balancing everything? And it's crazy, just sustainability is just a part of every aspect of your life.
For me, it's very much about making the world a better place.
Yeah.
You know, because I live in this world. Making America a better place, because I live in America.
Yeah.
Making Colorado a better state, because I live in Colorado. Like, I think it feels natural for me to work on things that make the world a better place. Sometimes that is just being of service. That isn't necessarily about sustainability and others, but it's beautiful to be of service. I think the more we are of service to our country and to our people, our community, the better. So it brings me joy and brings me happiness. But I think when it comes to sustainability, I don't. I kind of just do it. I do it because it just makes sense, I guess. And then oftentimes people will come to me and say, you know, Nova Sky Stories, for example, it's our goal is to bring art to the skies of every city in the world using drones. I mean, it's incredible, and it turns out it's very sustainable because fireworks have a lot of you know, there's obviously noise issues with animals, and then the other one is there's a lot of trash with fireworks people don't realize, and I was like, yeah, I'm really happy that it also is sustainable, but I kind of feel like I just kind of naturally gravitate towards sustainable things. Makes me more passionate about it, makes me feel like it's clearly a part of the solution for the future. Yeah, so I don't know why I guess my answer is a simple one, which is it feels like the obvious thing to do.
Yeah. So you talk about making Earth and our home a better place, but also there's actually a connection between Square Roots and SpaceX in terms of
at some point.
Interplanetary.
Yeah.
At some point we have to grow food on Mars, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that endeavor? You know, that might be so far out there.
No, I mean, absolutely. The way we're growing food is how we will grow food on Mars. But there's a lot of stuff we're doing that I can't share publicly that is going to make it much more possible to. right now it takes a lot of energy to grow indoors. Energy is a scarce resource when you're up on Mars. And so there's a lot of cutting edge stuff that Square Roots is doing that again, it's too early days to share. But yeah, it will enable us to grow food on another planet where we don't have as much abundance of energy, I hope that Square Roots can play a role. But again, for us, it's not like it has to. It's more like, that seems like we need to figure that out. So let's go figure it out.
That's all part of it, almost.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you say? So obviously stepping into, just sustainable farming in general. Like, what are the challenges that you faced in even promoting it?
Well, so sustainable farming is it's up to the farmer, right? So what we can do is we can help by buying food from them. So if our purchasing habits, we go to the farmers market more often, or we go to Whole Foods, we work with we buy food from local farms. That's really the greatest way to move the lever, is to actually go buy the food from them.
Yeah.
And not all of the farmers are perfectly sustainable. I don't think there's such a thing.
Yeah.
But if you know the farmer, it's much more likely that they're growing with better practices. I think that sustainable farming there's now a new term called regenerative farming, where you really are about regenerating the soil. And great, yes, I agree. Okay, but also don't put too much pressure on the farmers. Let's work with them to show them that we like that. So let's support them more with more buying their product more. Also, I believe the food tastes better. So that's another win for whoever's out there making their buying choices.
Yeah.
What's next for the kitchen? I mean, you're celebrating your anniversary. Congrats! As you look forward
Austin.
to, we talk about you celebrating halftime.
Yeah.
What's the second half look like? Because second half's always better than the first half, right?
I know, exactly. In fact, the final quarter is supposed to be even better.
Yeah. So,
I do think that way, actually. I think it will be really interesting. I don't know what the future is after Austin. I like to stay in the present and make sure Austin is just awesome. I just want it to be a beautiful restaurant that the community loves. I want people to go in and feel like we've created an institution for the city of Austin where anyone from a CEO to a carpenter can come in and enjoy, but this is their home in Austin. But so I love focusing on the near term, and then I feel pretty comfortable that my life continues to be interesting. So I'm not trying to make it more interesting. Pretty good, actually.
how much about is Elon involved in making your life more interesting?
My brother is a very interesting guy, but he's a genius. He's a genius, and it's really about supporting him. How can we help him be more successful? I love my role at Tesla, but it's successful because of him.
Yeah.
I know I played some critical roles in it, but it's what it is because of him, and we all around him, we all respect that, and so it's now how can we help him? How can we help him be more successful?
Yeah.
How would you say your passion for food, and obviously even having a business, a restaurant now for 20 years, how is that connected or not connected with Tesla, SpaceX, or just automotive? And
it's really not connected. It's not at all. It's more just it's a passion of mine. The restaurant is it's beautiful, serving delicious food daily basis to thousands of people, and doing it on recipes that I think are fantastic, really good and interesting. So you'll come in and have it's delicious and interesting. One of the other go-to dishes in here is the roasted carrots with Urfa dressing, and you've just never had that before. But man, when you have it, you're like, wow, that's good. So the recipe's in there, but also it'll be in the restaurant to try. But the joy of cooking, that's just I really think is something that I treasure, and it's just one of my things.
Yeah. Well, we certainly have that in common. You talk about community building with food. We've built communities through the experience of driving Tesla. So you talk about the first reaction of getting behind that Lotus.
Yeah, right.
That wow factor.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, and we all feel the same way, right? We all have our own individual stories about our first experience with Teslas, and hence, our community and
well, I mean, as you would know, just being with the company, back in 2018, 2019, those were some of the darkest days. And even living in the Bay Area, it was crazy. I had neighbors making videos of it, autopilot trying to go into the wall, and like people that live two exits up from me. And so even within the Tesla community, it wasn't until like I actually bought a Tesla, I drove it, and I was like, none of that's true. And yet the mainstream media is just pushing a certain narrative. And that's ultimately like,
It's really so surprising, why would the New York Times want Tesla to fail? But man, they write articles like they want it to fail.
Yeah.
And they have been forever. And I'm always like, aren't they supposed to care about alternative energy? Aren't they supposed to care about sustainable future? But actually, they're looking for drama. They're just trying to. There was a time where a New York Times journalist drove the car around in a parking lot until the battery. This was back even in 2012. Even back then, the car would refuse to run out of energy because it would just drive slower, because we didn't want anyone to be stranded. So the guy had to just continue to drive in circles, and then I don't even think it actually ran out of batteries. He just called a tow truck because he wanted the photo shot of a Tesla being pulled onto the back of a tow truck. And they published the article, and we're like, oh my God, did we really do this? And so we looked at our data logs, and our data logs showed the guy driving around in circles in a parking lot. And we shared that with the world. We shared it with the New York Times itself and the publisher of the New York Times. We're like, you need to publish a retraction. And I'm sure the guy was fired and stuff because you're not allowed to do that. But that isn't right. That we're doing such honestly, Tesla is doing so much for alternative energy for the world, and we hope other car companies do more EVs, and because it's all for the right purpose. But it is. I think we've just kind of accepted that they're looking for, like your neighbor who wants to do that video. They're just looking for drama. Yeah. And actually, it's pretty good, and it's really good for the world. It's great. You can chill out a little bit and actually accept that it's a pretty amazing thing that's going on here.
Yeah, and it was actually interesting because it was through all of the mainstream media and all the fake news, really, that actually, I mean, even Elon would say it actually generated more sales.
Yeah,
it was doing the inverse.
Yeah, sometimes people will they don't trust newspapers or TV to such a degree that they will do the opposite. And I actually find that is actually a thing.
Yeah. No.
That being said, we prefer them to appreciate Tesla a little bit more.
just a little bit.
But no, honestly, it's we can't complain. I mean, I think at the end of the day, Tesla is an incredible company with an incredible team, and it's got a very bright future ahead of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last thing I think before we end this interview is I think the Tesla community needs to know this if they don't already, in that they are indebted to you in your role in the origin of Tesla when the company was in dire financial straits. They needed some funding. You personally were also in your own kind of financial trap, but yet you had to kind of choose, like, do I fund Tesla? Do I keep it going? You had your own personal
it was 2008. I mean, I liquidated all my assets and funded Tesla with whatever I had. It wasn't a large part of the round, but it was what I had.
Yeah.
And it put me into personal bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And it was such a crazy time. I mean, I was like, well, I wonder what bankruptcy is gonna be like.
Let me see what this life
everyone
is like.
Everyone else was going bankrupt, and so the bank that was so mad at me because I had some assets that they were gonna go take.
Yeah.
And I just said, no, I'm gonna give it to Tesla instead because what would give me another year of payments of my mortgage or whatever, or I could help Tesla survive. I was like, I don't need a house. You can take a house or whatever. And I the guy keeps calling me every day, freaking out. And then after a few days, just stops calling me. And I'm like, oh, I wonder when he's going to call me again. And how long I've got this house. And calls me about a month later and says, Kimbal, our bank is going bankrupt. You have a year. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, in the banking world, we're all going bankrupt. So all of the loans that you have, like your mortgage or your house and stuff, it's going to be assigned to some other bank at some point in the future. So you're not out, but you have a year, about a year to go figure out your financial situation. And I was like, thank you. Like, wow, that couldn't have.
That hit different.
Wow. That's fate.
Yeah, no, that was such. I mean, yeah, I guess I have a charmed life in that sense, but also I just wanted to support Tesla. It's just like all my chips were on the table, you know.
Yeah,
it's the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here we are.
Yeah.
And here we are. Yeah.
Well, I want to be cognizant of time, but first off, thank you so much for 2008 and putting all your pennies there. But, obviously, the book is launching March 12th.
You can order it right now and it'll come to your doorstep March 12th.
Yeah. And what do you think is the biggest takeaway that you want people to have from either buying this book, or maybe they're not into cooking yet, or like what's your biggest...
Anyone who buys this book, you have to cook one of these recipes for your friends or family, and I want you to tell me what you think on X. Was what I use the most. I also use Instagram, but tell me what you think. I want you to try it. I want you to cook for your family and friends.
I feel like that's almost a call to us. I feel like all four of us here, we have to do that now. So
that's right. Maybe someday we'll cook together.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we'll commit to making one. I know Joe's actually, he loves cooking. Not sure about, Ryan's a cook too, but we'll take the commitment to literally making and letting you know on X.
Awesome. I love it.
But thank you again. Make sure to check out his book. Thank you, Kimbal, for all that you're doing with Tesla and SpaceX, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for all of your guys' support as well. We need your support. We love your support. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks so much.